You are listening to the Nature's Premier Podcast, episode 69. My interview with world-renowned author and artist, Mr. Schim Schimmel. Here on the Nature's Premier Podcast, we talk about everything from bees to babies and sustainable living. Join us while we talk about natural parenting and different ways to live a more sustainable lifestyle for ourselves and our future generations to come. Now let's begin. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode here on the Nature's Premier Podcast. I am your host, Brooke Nichols, and I am beyond blessed and grateful to be back here with you all today. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode. Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to give a quick word from our sponsor, Raise Vegan Magazine. This is actually a magazine that I'm personally subscribed to, and I highly recommend checking this magazine out if you have children. Even if you're not vegan, if you're looking to add more plant-based foods into your lifestyle, this is certainly the magazine to get onto. It's www.raisevegan.com. Do everything you need to know about being vegan and raising vegan kids. The rise in veganism and plant-based eating has brought with it a need for information for parents and parents-to-be. So definitely check them out again at raisevegan.com. Now on to the show. I am so excited to introduce you all to our next guest. Like, fangirl excited. And you're going to hear that in the interview, so I'm just forewarning you. There's a lot of fangirlism that's happening in this interview because I am such a fan of Mr. Schimmel's work. I absolutely adore his work. And not just his paintings, which are my absolute favorite. Like, I would pay a very high price for a fine arts Mr. Schim Schimmel painting at some point in my life. Hopefully I can get to that point. But I will say it's not just his art, it's his writing as well. His book, Dear Children of the Earth, A Letter from Home, is my absolute favorite book of all time. Like, number one favorite book. And I'm someone that I'm like so random. I have these lists of books that I want to read. You know, I want to read a certain amount of books a month. I really try to read up to 4 books a month. I try to read more if I can. And out of all of the material that I've read in my life, I'm 32 years old, that is the most important book I think I've ever read. It was so important to me reading it years ago. It's important to me now, you know, and it's a book that I pass on to my children. You know, I always tell them too, like, they have it in their bookshelf, and I say, okay, all these books are yours except for that one. Like, that's mine. That's my book, and that comes back with me when you guys move. Like, that's my book. But I will say, like, I'm such a fan of his work, and it is very bittersweet to have actually spoken with him because as a child, that's when I was introduced to Mr. Schimmel because he used to sell school supplies. Or there were school supplies that were sold with his artwork on it. And I remember I would go weeks saving up lunch money so I could afford his folders and memo pads and, you know, pencils and anything that had his artwork on it. And it's just very bittersweet because now here I am over 20 years later and I actually had a chance to speak with him, you know, and it's so funny because we have things that we carry with us from when we're children. And I have so many memories of, you know, buying a folder, right? And just rocking the heck out of that folder, using that folder for a long time and then it falling apart and then taping it and then getting made fun of by my classmates because I couldn't afford a new folder. But it wasn't even just that. I loved the artwork. It always resonated with me. And when I was a kid, I was teased for everything. I was teased for being poor. I was teased for not eating meat. I was teased for, you know, loving animals. I cut out a tiger one time out of a National Geographic catalog and I put it in a little frame and put it on my desk. Like, I'm just really extra like that. That's just who I am as a person. But it's just one of those very bittersweet moments. And again, like, I'm very much of a fangirl and I really wanted to introduce him to you all today, you know, especially those of you who have children, because his way of painting, his artwork, even his books, they're so gentle and it's just such a powerful message. And everyone that reads them gets something else out of them that maybe I didn't get, or, you know, everybody's different how they interpret paintings and writings and things like that. And I was so excited to get a hold of him and get him on the show. It was truly an honor interviewing him. Today's guest is Mr. Schim Schimmel. Schim is an internationally renowned artist and author whose artwork and books have been lovingly embraced worldwide for their beauty and environmental message. Although Schimmel paints in different styles from realistic to surrealistic to contemporary pop, the thematic message behind his different genres, as well as his books, is always the same: to care for, protect, and preserve this planet and its animals. Schim, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brooke. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to have you on. So, before we jump into your current works and everything you have going on, can you just give some background on your history as an artist and author for those of our families who may not be familiar with your work?
Sure. Um, I was very fortunate in that my father was an artist, and he also taught art privately. So he was a watercolorist, and so from a very young age, I was able to. I was influenced by that, and I started actually studying art with my father. I even went to his school here in Phoenix, Arizona, where he taught, and studied with him in his classes, and just grew up with it. So, like I say, very fortunate. If my father had not been an artist, I don't know if I would have been an artist or not. I'd like to think so. But obviously that was so helpful and a big influence. The other love of my life has always been music. I've always enjoyed playing instruments, and I used to be in bands and do that kind of thing. And for a long time in my 20s, it was a conflict for me. Which career, what did I really want to make a career out of, the art or the music?
Mm-hmm.
But art definitely, took a firm hold, and it just grew from there. So.
Okay, I have to say it's funny because when I was a kid, I'm an unapologetically huge Schim Schimmel fan. Like when I was a kid, I used to collect
Oh,
all of the folders, all of the accessories with all the
oh,
wildlife. Absolutely love your artwork, and that's why I was so excited to have you on the show because there are few artists that can capture like movements. So like one of my favorite books is actually a book that you written, and it's Dear Children of the Earth. And, can you tell us a little bit about your works with conservation and kind of blending the two? Because I have still yet to find many artists that actually do that have like a powerful message, such as conservation and sustainability and wildlife and things like that. So I have to say, I'm just a huge fan. Absolutely love your work.
well, first of all, thank you so much for that, Brooke. That's really nice to hear. And we probably should go back a little bit to the beginning. As I said, my father taught me how to paint, and he was a landscape painter. So I grew up here in Arizona, and all the painting I did those initial years were landscape paintings, and a lot of them were of the desert here where I live. So that's basically what I was doing, starting to sell my work. But particularly during that time, which was in the 80s, the environmental issues, they just became more to the forefront. And I became very concerned about a lot of these different issues. And, I just wanted to do something or make some kind of a positive impact with my artwork. I somehow wanted to tie my concern for the environment in with my artwork. And it was very strange. It was actually an image that came to me in my mind, and it was something I had to paint. I'd never done anything like this before. It was really the first painting I ever did that started this whole kind of this environmental visionary surrealism. That's what I used to call it back in those days. And what I saw in my mind was the Serengeti plain with the African animals on it, the elephants.
Mm-hmm.
But in the background, rising up from the horizon, I saw the earth coming up. And I just had to paint this. And I did a large painting of this. I never painted elephants before, the giraffes or zebras. I never painted the planet Earth before. But I did this painting, and it was just, it was the start of this whole movement. It's probably the most important painting I've done in my career. And from that point on, I knew that visually I could make a connection between my painting and saying something about our connection as human beings with the planet Earth and its animals. And I'm sorry, that was kind of a long-winded.
No, that's good. No, that's interesting. And what made you segue from the artwork into writing books? Because I know you had written 4 books, right? Or you had done artwork for 4 books.
And that's right. You had asked me about the book. So once I began painting these kind of images, I had signed on with a publishing company in California, and they decided to do a show over in Japan, in Tokyo. And we flew over there, did an art show, and we made a connection with a book publisher there. And they actually asked me if I would be willing to write a children's book using my artwork. That's how this started. And the book you were referring to, Dear Children of the Earth, A Letter from Home, was that first book. And I was very fortunate. It went on to be an international bestseller, and it was used in the textbooks in Japan, the school textbooks.
Oh, wow.
They took excerpts from the book and also some images from the book. And it really, my career in Japan, which is, that basically is where my major art market has been for the last 25, 30 years, was the publication of that book and getting the textbooks, and just suddenly the Japanese just really, they embraced it, and it was a message that they were ready to share with me, and that's how that started. So that was the first book, yes. And there have been 3 other children's books, and then I've also had some other books published, compilations of my artwork.
It was hard. It was funny. My kids actually, I have 3 daughters, and they don't know that you're the author. They think Mother Nature is the author of, they really do. I'm going to be, God's honest truth. They think Mother Nature, and I will, of course, give you accolades and say that you're the author, but it was, the way it was written it was just such a, it has to be one of my favorite children's books, because it's such a powerful message. And it really does, I feel like, relate to children and have them understand in a more compassionate way, rather than having the truth just thrown at them. That's a lot more harder to swallow.
Well, I'm so happy to hear you say that. And that was the tact I took. It's, for those people that don't know, that book, it's actually a letter written on, and in the book it looks like kind of lined paper, but Mother Earth herself is writing this letter to the children of the earth, telling them what she needs, which is basically to love her enough to want to protect her animals, and so forth. So I wanted it to be a very personal message, and from what you're saying, that's exactly right. And I appreciate the comments.
Yeah, it was hard to find, though. It was very difficult. I actually had a bidding war with someone on Amazon to get the book, to be honest. So is it going to go back into reprint? Because I think it's so funny how, I know it was written back in 93, I think it was.
Or 92 or 3. And it actually was in publication for, I don't know, 20, a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm a little confused, actually, why the publisher did decide to stop publishing the book, because it has continued to sell well in many countries. You're right, it is hard to get now. I've toyed with the idea of getting the rights back and maybe trying to reintroduce the book, so maybe we can do that. But you're right, you have to kind of look for it. Now, there are the other 3 books. Anybody who's interested can go on Amazon or go on the Schim Schimmel website and take a look at the other books. So.
And can you give us a little bit of so your second, your third, and your 4th book, are they all I haven't had a chance to check out the other 3. The first one, I actually wasn't aware of the other 3 either. I thought the first book was so hard to find. I wasn't aware that it was even available in America, because I know you do a lot of your work in Japan. Can you talk about your other books quick? Is it also conservation related?
Yeah, same thing. Again, it's taking my images, and in each case, it's a different approach to it as far as the text is concerned. But Dear Children of the Earth, Remember is one of them. The Family of Earth is the other book. And then the latest one, which came out about 5 years ago, which was an award-winning book here, I was very happy about that, is The Butterfly's Treasure. And each one just a different storyline, different take, but all of them about our connection with the earth and the animals especially.
Now, from when you started, drawing and painting, how do you feel that your artwork is received now? Because it is such a heavy message, and we are in very different times now. It just seems to be like your message is speaking louder and louder. Do you find that it's more received? Like, people are actually seeing, oh wow, like now we're getting the message, now we're getting it, or has it just been a constant, compassion people have shown around the world for the work and the message that you're bringing forth?
Well, I mean, it is frustrating. It seems like we're in a retrograde, right? It
Right.
does seem like we're kind of, 3 steps forward now, 2 steps back. But that's how evolution works, whether it's social evolution, cultural. I mean, these are difficult times when it seems like we are taking a few steps back, but then we'll take 3 steps forward again. It just that's I think that's the way it works, and I think the environmental message, whatever it is, but as far as making people environmentally aware, I think it has always been important. I say always. I mean especially these last 40 years or so. It would seem like it's less now, but it's not, of course. We just have to, I don't know, we have to persevere, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. You have to really dance around it because it's like, what do you do? Now you do a lot of you had said that I was reading your bio and you've traveled over 60 times to Japan. What does a lot of your artwork or your work there entail? You said that's where a lot of your, like where you do a lot of your work there.
Well, what happened, especially back in those days, the 90s and the 2000s initially, that first 20 years or so, like I said, my message and my artwork really caught on in Japan. So that really was kind of my full-time marketplace as far as what my fine art, which are the original paintings and the limited edition prints and so forth. Now in the United States, what happened was we started doing a lot of licensing, and that's what you were talking about as a younger girl was had a lot of school supplies and of course the books and different products and that kind of thing. So a lot of people, I became much more well known, my artwork in the United States actually, from the merchandising, the marketing aspect of products. In Japan, it's been that as well, but mostly the fine art. And so it just took off there. And I've always had a bigger market in Japan for the fine art for that reason, I think. Although I think I'm just as well known here probably. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you think you guys will be selling? Do you think you're going to get the licensing back to sell products again?
Well, I have a wonderful licensing agent that takes care of my licensing for me, and we still continue to do products. It's not as on such a grand scale as it was back in those days. The whole world of licensing is just like everything else has changed.
Of course.
Changed so dramatically. But no, there are still products, and we will continue to, if there are products that we like and want to do, we'll continue to license.
So now when people look at your artwork, I know art is very personal, the interpretation is very personal. What are you trying to portray to the person who's looking at it? Like, what kind of messages? Because obviously a lot of your artwork is, I know you do different types of artwork, but the one that I think you're great, but I'm just talking about like the animals and the environment and conservation aspect. Like, what kind of messages are you trying to portray to the person who's looking at them?
There are so many. I mean, take your pick. Where your passions lie, as far as for a particular person, what they'd like to see happen. Some people love elephants. They want to, the animals, or the air pollution, plastics. The oceans. I mean, there's a million problems out there, and we all have our passions for, what we want to do. With my work, it's really what I try to do is create an emotional response in the viewer. And I do that through painting these images of these beautiful animals. And a lot of times you'll see the planet Earth in the painting, or just maybe they're in their environment, but I'm trying to make a connection, an emotional connection between the viewer and whatever animal that I painted that they're looking at. And a lot of times that's done very strongly through the eyes themselves. People often ask me, why do you paint the wild cats so much? Because I do paint a lot of snow leopards, the tigers, the lions. Well, their eyes, they really communicate. When people look into just like with our dogs and our cats, our pets. I mean, there's a real connection there, especially through the eyes, and I really focus on that in the paintings. And so to answer your question, I'm trying to create an emotional response, basically, as trite as it may sound, a love, a compassion for these animals, because hopefully then that will translate into whatever that particular person wants to do to help protect either the animals themselves, their environments, whatever, however they want to contribute environmentally.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's interesting. I like how you said create an emotional response because, on the show we talk a lot about. I'm not like anti-tech at all because that's the future, but creating something that's going to take somebody off of their screen. Something like art. I love art. I'm such a fan of many different types of art, and that's a big reason why I do love your artwork is because it does create an emotional response. And I have such a deep love for conservation, for endangered wildlife, for our planet, because it's just dying, right? I mean, there's so much happening to it. And when I look at your art, it does remind me like what my interior passions are to make a difference. So that's a big reason why I wanted you to come on today as well, is because your books are catered towards children. So when children read this, it's emotional for me. Truthfully, I will say I cried reading your first book. I did a couple times because it's just very it's just, my kids are like, oh, that's such a pretty picture, but I'm like choking back tears. I'm like, oh my goodness,
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm being really honest. That's why it's one of my favorite books, and I'm an avid reader. But that's a big thing, especially when we're in a day in tech. And it's one thing to see something in your Facebook feed that kind of gets you riled up, but then you see something else and it kind of takes it away. But art's very different. It's very personal, and when you do see these pictures, when you do just take a second to look at it and to get engaged, it really does trigger an emotional response. And that's a big reason why I was a fan of your work and why I'm a fan of your books as well, is because I think it does really do that in such a gentle way. But it really gets the point across, because obviously, as you know, there's other books out there that are way more aggressive with what's going on, and they'll show you, these animals and how they're poached and trapped and horrible things. But I think your book really does gingerly tell the reader that, it needs help.
Well, and those other ways are very valid approaches too. Sometimes we need to be jarred a little bit or hit over the head with something, and where it's, oh my God, it's a little bit gut wrenching, Yeah,
it's true. No, you're right. You're right. But I think for a child, a 3-4-year-old, it plants seeds that really stays with them for the rest of their life. And that's why I was so excited when I saw it. I buy your calendars, and I have your calendar in my office. And it's funny too, because I was I didn't know. I thought, I wasn't sure if you were still around, if you were still, doing paintings. And I know the books were older, so I'm like, oh, maybe, he had retired. So that's why I was so excited. I was like, yes, because I really want more families to, to know about you and to know what you're promoting, and, just see your beautiful artwork.
Well, I so appreciate your personal response to my artwork, and that's always wonderful for me to hear whenever from a fan I get, on Facebook or whatever, through the website or something, and they tell me they grew up with the art, or it meant so much to them. That always means such a great deal. And yeah, my approach to it, I think, because I can get cynical like everybody else, but I am an optimist at heart, and I also beauty in the world is a lot more important to me than the other approach we were talking about. I mean, especially since I am an artist, and through the artwork, that's how I want to appeal to people's sense of responsibility towards the planet, or towards environmental concerns that they have, and it's through a more positive look, hopefully. And to me, that's what it's about. I mean, if somebody says, "Well, what's the biggest environmental problem right now? What is what do we?" Well, I mean, there's a ton of them, but kind of overarching all of the specifics. I think it's one of attitude, and perhaps we can use the word ignorance, and I mean that in a positive way, but just not understanding or knowing, just the how what the grand scale of what is happening, and it's a matter of developing compassion and understanding. The main thing is, human beings, we tend to feel like we're our own little individual selves living on this planet, like it's a rocky planet, that we
Yeah.
live on, and so forth. But we're not. We are the planet. Human beings literally are the earth. I mean, what do we think our bodies are made of? What do we think every day when you drink and eat and you breathe? That's all the earth. Through our bodies, I often say that we are the eyes and ears of the earth. And so are all the animals. Everything is totally interconnected. That's not, woohoo stuff or metaphysical
No, it's very true.
stuff. It's scientific, it's metaphysical, it's scientific, it's just the truth.
Yep.
Everything is interconnected. And if we can wake up to the fact that, no, I'm not just this little insignificant person living on this planet. No, I am the planet. I'm part of it. I'm in that respect, I'm part of the universe. The whole universe is interconnected.
Yeah.
And if you can start to see that and feel that, then you're going to develop more compassion and understanding for our relationship to the earth.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And that's a big reason why I think, kids should be exposed to these things, and they should know about the issues, and, done in a way that is not going to, I don't want to say frighten them, but, it's just going to ignite those emotions, because I do think inherently we all know that we're earthlings, we're all part of the same scope. So it's, I think it's really important. Yeah. So I totally agree with that. Now, so you've been doing this a long time. Now, where's your journey now? Where are your travels taking you?
Well, I still go to Japan. I was just there in December and had shows in a couple of different cities there. So I do have my fan base there, and my fine art market, for the most part, is in Japan. And so I just continue I'm trying to develop a few other ththings here. I've been taking I taught myself, at least to a small degree this summer. I sat down and I thought, I need to learn Photoshop. I need to get on here and start using Photoshop more. And I've been using that and designing a line of T-shirts that I sell on Amazon. If you just put Schim Schimmel T-shirts in, you'll see them.
Oh, cool! You sell shirts now?
Well, I've been designing T-shirts for the last 6 months or so, and putting them on Amazon. And the easiest thing is just put Schim Schimmel T-shirts, and you'll see all the different ones I have so far.
Oh, very cool.
And I also have a store on Redbubble, which is another print-on-demand company. And if you go on Redbubble, put Schim Schimmel in, you'll see there's actually quite a few different products. So that's kind of a new avenue for me this last 6 months or so. And I'm really enjoying it. It's fun to sit down on Photoshop, take either a new image or one of my older images, and then kind of repurpose it for a product like a T-shirt.
Great. Now that's all I'm going to be wearing for the next 6 months. I'm just going to go to Redbubble and go on Amazon and buy a bunch of shirts.
I love it. Well, thank you. Those are some new directions that I've been going in recently. Really having a good time with it. So.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I wasn't even aware of that. That's awesome. Now, can you tell us a little bit about the Steve Irwin Art Gala that you're going to be auctioning some art products off at?
Well, this just came up recently. I'm very excited about it. So I believe they have 2 galas a year of this kind, but this next one that's coming up, they have an auction. They're selling, of course, helping to raise funds for their zoo in Australia. And it's wonderful. Been asked to contribute some images here that we will, we're very excited and happy to do that. And, just whenever we can do something like that, I've done that for a few zoos in Japan as well. A couple of the, there's the Wildlife Way Station in California here where they take care of animals, and we've donated several times to them as well. So this is just, one more avenue. But almost all of us know Steve Irwin and his work and his
absolutely. Oh, that's awesome! And where is that going to be located? Is that in Los Angeles?
You said when or where?
No, is that in Los Angeles?
No. It's in their zoo in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Just look up the Steve Irwin Zoo just to find out the exact location and date of that. So, um, yeah, I think that's this May coming up. So we're in the process of going through our images here to decide what would be most appropriate for their zoo.
Oh, that's great. That's really cool. Yeah, when I read that, I thought that was awesome. So, where can our listeners find more information about you, find your work and your products and things like that? Like, where would they be able to find that?
Yeah, at this point, I mean, there is the Schim Schimmel website. At this point, it's a little antiquated, but it's okay. It still serves its purpose.
It still works.
We're rebuilding a new website. We're in the process of that. But yes, you can go onto the Schim Schimmel website. Like I said, Amazon, the store on Redbubble.
Are you on social media?
Yes, Facebook. I am. I'm a little behind the times. Kind of a dinosaur with some of this stuff. So
Yeah, that's okay.
just recently I started doing Instagram, and just for all the younger people out there, just bear with me. I'm.
I saw some throwbacks. I don't know if you post on your Instagram, but I saw some throwback pictures, and it really took me back. I'm telling you, a very special artwork. You really do. Like it's very. I would have just Schim Schimmel paintings all over my house if I could. I mean, I really.
So sweet. I really do. I so appreciate that. That's just so nice to hear. Thank you.
So for those listening today, is there anything that you'd want to, tell them kind of as a takeaway about your work, about your conservation messages, for our listeners today?
Just like I went back to, I mean, it is a little more philosophical in nature, but just don't forget that all of us are. It's like my book, the title of the book, The Family of Earth. We all are the family of Earth, and we're all connected. And if you have an area of passion, whether it's for a particular animal or animals or forests, the oceans, whatever, if there's an area that you're concerned with or have some passion for, figure out what you can do to help preserve and protect whatever it is that, like I said, that you have this passion for. I think that's basically it. And don't forget, we're all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I've actually, we get a lot of people that message us or even if they have older kids and they're always like, what can we do to teach like conservation and the love of the environment for our children? And I always recommend different books. And obviously I recommend your book. And I just tell them like, it's my biggest thing too is truthfully to like not be so on the screen, like on TV, watching, movies and, to kind of be more well-read so people can know what's going on. Cause I think that kind of takes away from it too. I mean, at least for me, like, I feel like a lot of people are always on tech, and I think we do need to go back to more, like books and art, and to kind of really get, or just go outside, right? Just like go outside when it's nice out, take a walk and just look around at nature and hear the birds. And, all of this is in many different parts of the world are dying. Like I have a very good friend of mine lives in Zimbabwe, and it's just, he just sees every year. It's just, you have the big game hunters come and, poach these animals. And it's like all over the world, you hear what's happening to the environment, and we can literally go in our backyard and just, look around and kind of get an appreciation. So I always tell these families to like, have your children read, have them, learn about different animals. And, again, that we're all earthing, similar to what you said earlier.
Well, your point is so well taken. And that is a concern of mine now, just that the world has changed so much, especially with younger people that are spending just virtually all of their time or most of it behind a computer screen. And it's almost like the virtual worlds are more important than the actual environment and world, have become more important than the actual world around us. And to your point, yes, we don't want to lose sight of that. Go outside, but don't lose your connection with nature itself, and through books and through artwork and through going outside and being engaged that way. Virtual worlds are fun and they're great, but we have a real world here.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. It's a miracle. It's beautiful, and it's up to us to protect it and love it.
Absolutely. And the lines get blurred, from what's real and what's not real. And then
Yes.
we're focused so much on what's not real. And then by the time, we turn around, it's like, oh wait, there's no more rainforest, there's no more trees, and that's the biggest issue. But Schim, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I am so grateful to have had you on. I am a huge fan, and I will definitely look forward to all of your works coming in the future.
Brooke, it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That wraps up our interview with Mr. Schim Schimmel. Please check him out on Facebook and Instagram at Schim Schimmel. Schim, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of the Nature's Premier podcast. If you haven't already, please make sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast so you do not miss any upcoming content. Thank you all so much again, and until next week, we hope you have a wonderful, stress-free week ahead. Take care, friends.